Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Petty. I'm a life and leadership coach based up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And it's a pleasure to be with you here today at the request of Mountain TV to talk to you about some of the ways that we can engage the current COVID crisis as well as possible. And there's no shortage of tips, tricks, and strategies. There's no shortage of news content, different opinions, and all levels of intensity on both sides of the equation, all sides of the equation around this crisis. And so my intent is not necessarily to offer you more tips, tricks, and strategies because there's tons out there, maybe too many to consume. It's more to talk to you about who you are as a person in the midst of this challenge. And of course, this is unprecedented in our lifetimes. Not since World War II have we had something that impacted us globally on this scale, where there's not a person on the planet who in some way isn't affected by this whole thing. And it's bewildering, to say the least, to find ourselves in this experience. I remember last Friday when the first two confirmed cases were found up here in Routt County. And my wife and I sort of realized, well, okay, I guess it's on. We're in this now. And then the same day we got notice that schools were shutting down. And I remember going through very quickly all these different stages of kind of like, oh crap, and then kind of like, okay, I guess it's happening. I guess I have to really shift my perspective and begin to think differently and do differently. And have gone through many cycles of that process over and over in the course of just now 8 days since it hit, I guess, our neighborhood or our town. So it's bewildering to all of us. We've never experienced this. We don't have a frame of reference for how to engage with something like this. We can't say, oh, this is like, when we did this back in 2012. In fact, I would venture to say that this is even more impactful globally than 9/11. It's even more impactful for us as Americans than 9/11 because of the global scale. So let's just start out by saying that it's really bewildering. And each of you, I would imagine, is having your own unique experience in response to this development. And more than the tips, tricks, and strategies, I think a good place for us to go today is to look at who each of us is as a person. Because we all have unique wiring, we all have unique experiences, expertise, backgrounds, emotional capacities. We all have different vocations and various things, and so we are each having a unique experience. And I think some of the best tools we can begin to sharpen during this time are those tools that have to do with who we are as individuals, increasing our capacity to deal with the discomfort and the challenges that go along with a time like this. Because let's be honest, this is the newest and most significant crisis that our world is facing, but life is hard. And so before this crisis came along, you were already experiencing challenges in your own life that for you were really complex and difficult to navigate. So we're not talking about today just things to help us navigate through the COVID crisis. We're talking about continuing to develop our capacity as people to navigate life. And in the midst of the chaos that this is causing, there is a unique opportunity for each of us to come to understand our core beliefs about our ability to control life and the world around us, to understand the coping mechanisms we've developed to insulate ourselves from some of the difficult realities in life. And so as this pressure is applied to us, we have an opportunity to get to know ourselves a little better and upgrade ourselves as people to put more weight on the bar, so to speak. The weight has been put on the bar for us through COVID, and we've got to lift it. So how ready are you to lift that? And I want to give us some thoughts and ideas around that I hope will help you. This is not surface level work. This is deeper work, but when we do the deeper work, we get much more bang for the buck, because when we begin to address our core beliefs and all those kinds of things, those core beliefs drive our behavior in the world. And so when we begin to upgrade and modify our core beliefs to align with reality, then our conduct in the world can align with reality, and then we can begin to influence in very productive ways and even more productive ways the reality that we experience around us and change it for better. So the first thing I want to offer is something that I've adapted from Jocko Willink, who is a renowned, legendary Navy SEAL instructor. And you may have read some of his stuff before. And his way of saying it was something like, if you're uncomfortable, good. I've just added on to that, if you're uncomfortable, good, get used to it. in the Western world, in America, we've done a tremendous job of uh, providing comforts and conveniences and things that allow us to avoid some of the realities that the rest of the world faces, like high mortality rates and absence of food. I mean, for many of us listening, it's a matter of, do I go to Trader Joe's, or do I go to Whole Foods, or do I go to City Market, and do I buy organic, or do I buy non-organic, non-GMO? For many of us listening, those are some of the choices we make on a daily basis, that a lot of the rest of the world wouldn't even be able to understand, because they live at a very different place. I am grateful for all of that. Now, I imagine all of you are too, and it's preferable to other kinds of existences. But the downside, the shadow side of that, is that we've gotten so good at creating these comforts and conveniences that when things like this come along, our capacity to deal with the mental load, the psychological load that it puts on us can be less than maybe it needs to be in the moment to deal with it. And so a key is upgrading our relationship to discomfort. Because whether we like it or not, there are parts of life that are simply uncomfortable. And this is extremely uncomfortable right now. And upgrading our relationship to discomfort means being willing to recognize the value and necessity of discomfort. If anyone listening to this can tell me a time when they grew significantly that it didn't involve also an associated level of discomfort, I would love to hear from you, because I have personally neither have my clients ever grown in any important way in life without being willing to push into the discomfort. And so I want to encourage you in this time to upgrade your relationship to discomfort. All of us are feeling it. And rather than going through elaborate ways to avoid it or to deny it, I want you to accelerate your movement through this denial phase, through the anger phase, get to the acceptance phase, and then get in touch with the discomfort. And not create elaborate ways to cope with it, but rather to pull it closely to yourself and say, this is uncomfortable. How am I going to begin to relate to this discomfort in a way that can allow me to grow as a person? One of the benefits of leaning into the discomfort is that as we grow as a person, all of the important relationships and responsibilities we have in our lives benefit from that too. But when we as people flee from the discomfort, we stunt our own growth, and the relationships and responsibilities around us are negatively impacted as well. So lean into the discomfort. If you're uncomfortable, good. Get used to it, because even though this is a much more uncomfortable situation than we're accustomed to, life is full of discomfort. And we have great ways of trying to escape it, and some of them are really destructive and can lead to addictions and various destructive behaviors, even just sort of avoiding reality. But I want to tell you that each of you has a unique purpose and unique brilliance to bring into the world. And part of the way that we'll do that, even in the midst of this crisis, I want to say, even as a result of this crisis, is when we're willing to engage the discomfort, let it into our lives, and let it put weight on the bar so that we can grow as people. I think a lot of people are going to feel kind of stuck. What do I do right now? And for very legitimate reasons. For some people, their employment has suddenly evaporated. For others, maybe there are already psychological challenges, and this addition is an overload to their system, and they're feeling super stuck. So I think a lot of us are just going to feel some periods of stuckness, and to greater and lesser degrees, depending upon our circumstances and our psychological equipment and all that kind of stuff. And a prescription for that is, when you're stuck, get moving. And that can literally mean, if you're finding yourself stuck on the couch, not knowing what to do, paralyzed by fear or whatever, change your state. So get off the couch, go for a walk to the refrigerator and get an apple. Turn on some music that you like. One key to not being stuck any longer is simply to go, oh wait, I'm stuck. I can take action to be unstuck, and that can literally be physical movement away from that spot. It can also be not necessarily an action towards something. It can be, I'm stuck, I'm exhausted, I need to take a nap. So I think one of the keys to continue to move through this particular crisis is to know kind of that you are stuck, to acknowledge that, number one, and then to take a step to begin to get yourself moving forward again. Again, that doesn't always have to be going and doing something. It could be stopping doing. And there's a lot of parents out there who may be buying into the idea that in this crisis, I've got to always be with my kids. I've got to be the consummate homeschooler suddenly overnight. I've got to be super creative because all of the moms and dads out there are posting all their, home indoor climbing gyms they're building and all these kinds of things. There can be a lot of pressure to be a certain kind of parent. And I want to suggest to parents and caregivers of children and others out there who are in similar situations that just like the oxygen mask on the airplane, showing up well to your parenting and caregiving responsibilities means first doing what you can to take care of yourself. Um, so be willing to prioritize the value of that, because when you're not able to show up to those relationships and responsibilities in decent shape, then you're not going to be able to perform well in those environments. Um, so, if you're uncomfortable, good, get used to it. If you're stuck, get moving. And again, movement doesn't mean necessarily going outside. It can. It could mean taking a nap. It could mean watching a Netflix show. Could mean calling a friend. A variety of things. The principle is simply know that you're stuck and change your state. I wish I had better news for us here in terms of dealing with fear. Um, and I actually have dealt with pretty debilitating anxiety most of my adulthood from about 23 on. In hindsight, I see that the anxiety was with me in all of my childhood years as well, but it just wasn't ever really flagged or prolonged enough for people to address it. So I understand how crippling fear can be. And in my case, it's sort of like at a clinical level sometimes where I can really be totally locked up by it. And so I say that simply to say that I can relate to people out there that are really feeling the effects of crippling levels of fear. And I wish I had better news around how to deal with it, but I think reality proves that the best way through fear is to practice being brave. When fear shows up, it's an opportunity for us to go, okay, I see you, fear. I am scared, and I'm going to keep moving anyway. There's no such thing as courage or bravery without fear. I think we'd like to believe that as soon as fear shows up and I start practicing being brave, suddenly the fear goes away. But I don't think that happens either. I think what does happen when we make the choice to be brave in spite of the fear, to act anyway in spite of the fear, is that this other thing comes alongside and begins to fuel us for the journey. And that other thing, I think, is resolve. When we make a decision that, yes, I'm scared and I'm going to move forward anyway, we bring along resolve as a powerful companion to keep moving forward. So I'd love to connect with any of you. During this COVID-19 crisis, I'm offering some free coaching, and you can find that on my business Facebook page. I have a Calendly link where you can go and sign up for a date and time that would work well for you, just to support you in whatever way I can, personally and professionally, during this time. Such as I have Give IV, and that's one of my tools in my tool bag. You can find me at digdeepwinbig.com, and on Facebook at Andrew Petty Coach. Feel free to email me at andrew@digdeepwinbig.com as well. I have a podcast coming out on April 6th called Andrew Petty is Dying, which is, I've been working on this for a long time. It's about how we can use our mortality to motivate us to live our best lives now. And, in the cosmic coincidence of things, we've got this major crisis going on right now too. So I hope you'll tune into that. First episode will launch on April 6th. Timely launch. I couldn't have orchestrated it, but there you go. I really hope that what I've shared today has meant something to you. It might be a little bit different than some of the approaches that you've heard before on how to navigate these kinds of things. In my own experience and the experience of my clients, when we do this deeper work, we do get the big wins. When you do this kind of deeper work, it changes a whole host of other things. It's a high bang for buck kind of thing. And if you want to do more of that kind of work, please do connect with me, because it's great to do it with a skilled partner like myself and others who can help you through this process. Pleasure to be here. We're in this together. Press on. If you're stuck, get moving. If you're scared, practice being brave. And if you're uncomfortable, get used to it.